We are very delighted to have you. We look forward, of course, to hearing about the renewed relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia. A lot is going on in the region, from the Abraham Accords that were finished under the Trump administration at the very end to, of course, everything going on in Iran, a recent election, continued low-level conflict in the region, a renewed emphasis on perhaps the United States getting back into the Iran nuclear deal. There's no shortage of topics to discuss. So let me just give your brief bio and then we'll let you go into it. His Highness Prince Faisal bin Farhan, who's now the Foreign Minister of Saudi Arabia, has had a 20-year business career, including as chairman of the board of Al Salam Aerospace, which was a joint venture with Boeing. He established the Shamel Investment and Training Company, and he also served as an advisor to the Royal Court of King Salman in Saudi Arabia, and as many of us know him, as an advisor to the ambassador of Saudi Arabia to the United States, where many of us met him when he was in Washington. And to interview the foreign minister, we have Richard Engel, the chief foreign correspondent of NBC News, and I couldn't think of anyone better or more knowledgeable about the Middle East. You know, I'll have to add one personal note. Rich and I went to college together. And even then, he wanted to learn Arabic. I think right after we graduated, he left to move to Cairo, taught himself several dialects of Arabic, and has covered every war and revolution and positive development and change of government in the Middle East. And so, Rich, without further ado, I'll let you take it away. Thank you.
Well, what an intro to be back among old friends. And it is an absolute pleasure today and a privilege to be able to interview, to provide some context, to have a discussion, because that's really what this is. It's a conversation, not an interview, with His Highness, the Prince Faisal of Saudi Arabia. So Prince Faisal, we want to hear about Saudi Arabia. We want to hear where the country is going. Anja set it up beautifully. Let's start with U.S. relations. U.S. relations with Saudi Arabia seemed to be quite close under President Trump. How are they with the Biden administration? We'll talk about some of the bumps along the road, but how would you describe relations with the Biden administration at the moment?
Thanks, and wonderful to be here. I want to say here at the Aspen Security Forum, but here online with all you, and very grateful for the opportunity to have this discussion. I think the Saudi-US partnership is a historic one. It has spanned several decades. We believe this partnership has overall delivered strong benefits for both the region and our two countries. We continue to have a robust dialogue across all administrations, and that has continued on into the Biden administration. We've had a strong, robust dialogue about all of those key issues that concern both of us, whether it's regional security, whether it's how to deal with Iran's nuclear program and Iran's activity in the region, including its threatening of maritime shipping in our neighborhood, but also issues such as Yemen, where we've had a very active engagement with the Biden administration, trying to work together to find a path to a ceasefire and then hopefully a political process that can end that conflict. And there, the engagement of Tim Lindeking, the special envoy for the US, has been very, very helpful and very positive. Also, historically, we've worked together on regional security issues. Sudan has been one area where we've worked well together to support the transition, and we continue to work on supporting that transition. So across the board, regional security, we have a very strong engagement, but it goes further than that. We are also now very actively engaged together on dealing with climate change. We recently had the visit of John Kerry to the kingdom, and I think he found that the kingdom has really decided to play a leadership role in the region and globally in addressing the dangers of climate change and working in the multilateral context to address that. So that's another area where we have a lot of opportunities to really bring positive benefit, not just to the region and to the both of us, but to the global community. I would say we have a very good engagement. There are issues, but as part of any complex partnership, there are always issues, and we are finding that we're able to work ourselves through those issues.
Well, we'll get to some of those issues in a second, but let's go to the region. You mentioned developments in the region, and Anja mentioned them as well. The Abraham Accords. Now, this has been a year and a half of COVID. Not a lot of people have been focused on it, but it was a major development. In the waning days of the Trump administration, there was this accord, and Arab states, Bahrain and UAE primarily, signed on for peace deals with Israel. And so far seem to be, from what I understand, happy with them. And that accord survived its first stress test. There was a little war this summer with Israel fighting against Hamas in the Gaza Strip. And I wasn't sure if these accords were going to survive that, but they did. So the question is, did Saudi Arabia watch that? Is the kingdom thinking of joining? I know you've said in the past you want a comprehensive deal and wait, but is that the direction you're leading in?
Look, we've always said that peace is the strategic choice of the Arabs. And I think what we have to do is focus on working towards a comprehensive solution to the Palestinian issue. We think that overall the Abrahamic Accords have worked positively to spurn, I think, engagement in the region. So in that sense, the decision by those countries that engaged can be viewed positively. We think that we need to build on that spirit, and the best way to build on that spirit is to find a path to solving the issue of the Palestinians and finding a path to a Palestinian state, because that will deliver complete normalization for Israel in the region.
So is that your condition, that no Palestinian state, no Palestinian agreement with all the Palestinian factions, Hamas and whoever runs the West Bank, or there will be no normalization with Saudi Arabia? Is that what you're saying?
So I'm not going to go into the details of the negotiations. The Palestinians have one legitimate representative, which is the PLO and the Palestinian Authority, and that engagement is the key engagement in order to progress towards a peaceful solution. I think without solving the Palestinian-Israeli conflict in a sustainable long-term way, we're not going to have real sustainable security in the region. So we need to try everything we can to make that happen.
Do you see any progress coming on that front? I mean, I haven't seen any real progress on these Israeli-Palestinian front in a very long time.
Well, we have a new government in Israel. Perhaps that can deliver some progress. We'll have to wait and see.
Not tremendously optimistic. On another side, what about with Qatar? Saudi Arabia and Qatar had a very deep level of mistrust, a lot of anger. Now there seems to be an attempt to bury the hatchet. How are you seeing things?
The relationship with Qatar is very good. We are working closely together on a multitude of issues. We are continuing to work together primarily to strengthen the GCC. We both believe that, along with the other members of the GCC, that the GCC is a key element in the stability of not just the Arabian Gulf, but the broader region, as well as being a major, of course, economic driver for the region. And so far, we feel that the Al-Ula Declaration, which resolved our differences, has delivered dividends for all and has contributed to strengthening GCC unity. And we're going to continue to work towards reaping the benefits of that unity for the people of the countries of the Gulf.
Let's stay on the tour of the region, if you will. What about Yemen? It's continued to be a horrible humanitarian, environmental disaster, and it's literally on your doorstep. Are you seeing? How do you see the way out of this?
Well, we've laid out what we see as the way out, which is the initiative that we launched, the Strategic Peace Initiative, the Ceasefire Initiative, where we offered a comprehensive ceasefire throughout Yemen, as well as access to ports and airports and all of that in a much more streamlined way, and of course also laying the groundwork for political negotiations. Unfortunately, so far the Houthis have not taken up that offer. On the contrary, they've continued to fire ballistic missiles, drones at Saudi civilian targets, as well as continue to attack the front lines of the government of Yemen, primarily in Ma'rib. Ma'rib is a city of about 1 million citizens, and on top of that, 1.5 million IDPs, or even more, that they have threatened not just with ground attack, but also have fired ballistic missiles at, killing countless civilians. And it appears that they still favor the military option, that they still think that they can achieve some military gains that can give them an advantage. Our message to them has been and is and will continue to be that they should put the needs of the Yemeni people first rather than the needs of their group, and that they should agree to a ceasefire and engage in peace talks with the government of Yemen, with all parties in Yemen, and forge a new path for Yemen, a path for Yemen that will include them necessarily as a political actor in the future of Yemen, rather than trying to impose their will by force on the rest of Yemen. This is the challenge. And of course, you mentioned the environmental issue, and here we continue to be very concerned about the oil tanker Safar, which is moored outside of Hodeidah, which is falling apart, and where the Houthis are denying the United Nations access to do even rudimentary maintenance. And this just shows you how much disregard they have for the interests of Yemen and the people of Yemen, because if that tanker does rupture, it will ruin the livelihoods of many thousands of fishermen. It will ruin the environment in the Gulf of Aden and the southern Red Sea for generations. But rather than allow the UN to try and fix it, they are insisting on using it as a negotiating tool.
Another possible disaster coming out of a country that has seen too many. Staying in the region, Iran. Now, the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal, as it's often called, it looks like this administration, the Biden administration, wants to revive it. And there's been talks back and forth. That would put Iran, it seems to be, in quite a strong position. Do you worry about that? Do you worry about an emboldened Iran? And are you in a position has that ship sailed? Have you come to terms with the fact that the US may be doing this despite Saudi Arabia's concerns?
So we already have an emboldened Iran, and Iran is extremely active in the region with its negative activity, whether it's continuing to supply the Houthis with weapons or endangering shipping in the Arabian Gulf, which we've got reports coming in today that may indicate additional activity there, in being part of the destruction that's happening to Lebanon's economy by helping to garner the political deadlock that's there. All around the region, Iran continues to be emboldened. I think the JCPOA, we supported it when it was first signed grudgingly, because we thought it was incomplete as a non-proliferation document, but also because it would lead to an emboldening of Iran. We now hear from the Biden administration, from others, that they are committed to a longer and stronger approach to JCPOA. So whether that's a re-entry into JCPOA and then finding a path to long and stronger, we are interested to hear that, how we're going to achieve that. What's the strategy to get there? We certainly support a deal with Iran, as long as that deal ensures that Iran will not now or ever gain access to nuclear weapons technology. So that's the challenge. It's not that we think Iran should forever be a pariah. We would very much welcome Iran as a productive part of the region. It could actually be a significant contributor to regional stability, to regional economic prosperity. But that would require them engaging in the region as a state actor in a normal way on state-to-state relations, not supporting militias, not sending weapons to armed groups, and most importantly, giving up a nuclear program which might be used to develop nuclear weapons. If we can achieve that, if the JCPOA negotiation going on now in Vienna, although suspended temporarily, can help lead us to that, that's a good thing. But I think the emphasis on longer and stronger is critical. How are we going to get that longer and stronger deal? And how are we going to address the broader regional context? And that's a discussion we continue to have with our partners. And I want to say I'm very appreciative of the level of engagement we've found, both from the US, but also from our European partners, as well as all those involved in the negotiations. So there's a best engagement going on. We hear that everybody wants the same thing, so a longer and stronger deal. Everybody wants to address Iran's regional malign activities that are destabilizing the region and causing risks not just to us, but to the global security and global economy. How to get there is still something that's, I think, under discussion.
There is domestically in Saudi Arabia, the main project, and correct me if I'm wrong, has been for the last several years, the project Vision 2030. Now, this is an ambitious plan to transform the country economically, to diversify the economy, so it's not just on oil, to change the country culturally. It was quite a radical change laid out to bring Saudi Arabia from where it was to a new place. How is it coming? We are now in 2021. There are only 9 years to go. I remember when this was first announced, it seems like a long time ago. Are you getting there? Are there real changes? Are they happening?
So it's now 5 years in, and I think we've made fantastic progress. We have not achieved everything we've wanted by now, but on the other hand, we have in some measures exceeded expectations. So we think we are very much on progress. We believe we will achieve the targets of Vision 2030 on schedule, some ahead of schedule, we hope. Now, Vision 2030, as you mentioned, is extremely ambitious, extremely broad-ranging, and I think anyone that has experience with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, who has visited us over the years, can see the tremendous change happening across the board. If you visit the Riyadh 4 years ago and you visit today, it's almost unrecognizable, Riyadh, Jeddah, anywhere in the kingdom, really. Whether it's things like how open the economy is, whether it's the empowerment of women in the workforce, whether it's just how vibrant society in the public space has become. Vision 2030, some of the key elements are, of course, tourism, entertainment, arts, and culture. And if you come to Riyadh now, you can really see that having a transformative effect on the public space. So you can see really people enjoying themselves in public much more than they did before. Many more restaurants opening up, a lot of entrepreneurs starting to start small businesses, everything from small cafes, with specialty coffee places, something we didn't used to have. The young Saudis who have a taste for real fine coffee, opening up coffee shops, to people starting event management companies, and to music production, movie production. For the first time, for instance, this year, Saudi Arabia participated officially in the Cannes Film Festival, and we had a number of movies showing at the Cannes Film Festival. So we hope to have a submission for the Oscars. There is a lot going on. I mean, we could have a session just to talk about everything that's going on vis-a-vis Vision 2030. We are energized by this vision, and we are very much optimistic that we are going to, in some cases, not just achieve the goals, but exceed them. It's a challenge, but we are happy to face the challenge.
In your initial comments, you talked about the long list of areas in which the United States and Saudi Arabia are cooperating. One of the clear stumbling blocks has been over the murder of the journalist, columnist Jamal Khashoggi. And I know Saudi Arabia is often asked about this, and it's often an uncomfortable question, but the Biden administration continues to raise it. And the Biden administration, with CIA studies that have been released, is clearly not letting this issue go. Does Saudi Arabia have a plan to address this? I know there's been a court case. It's been criticized for the people who were put on trial and who were not put on trial. Do you have a plan to bring justice to this, to make sure this kind of thing doesn't ever happen again, that the perpetrators are fully punished, and to patch up relations with the United States and many other countries in the world who were disturbed by this?
So I want to say I completely understand that many countries around the world were disturbed by this heinous crime, as were we. So I'm mindful of people's disgust, just because we were disgusted by it as well. we have taken the actions you mentioned. We have brought those people that have been implicated in the murder to court. They have faced trial, they have been sentenced. And in our judgment, that is what was required from a judicial point of view, and that was important. More important in many cases is what you also mentioned, which is how to ensure that this never happens again. And here, the leadership of the kingdom instituted institutional reforms to ensure that the security services, within them, there cannot be any lapses in authority or lapses in judgment or anything that can lead to such a crime happening again. So I am confident in saying that something like this cannot happen again through in the kingdom or through any of its agencies.
We are now coming up to the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And 9/11 for much of the world changed relations between the West and the Islamic world, changed relations between the West and Saudi Arabia in particular, because the vast majority of the hijackers were Saudi nationals. We're now coming to this milestone anniversary. Do you have a message for this to the world, to the United States on this 20th anniversary?
I still remember vividly watching the scenes from New York on television, and the shock and the, almost despair I felt seeing those terrible images. And I think it's something we shared the world around, the grief and sorrow for the victims. It showed us very clearly that we have a global problem of terrorism, a global problem in extremism, something where the kingdom was already engaged in. We were already facing terrorism, but we have stepped up even more, and we have become one of the key players in on the global scene in countering not just terrorism, but terror financing and extremist ideology. And this is, I think, the key. We need to work together to continue to pursue those that espouse these extremist ideologies and those organizations that pose a global terror risk. And here, again, we started the conversation in talking about the U.S. Saudi relationship, and of course, it's relevant to this instance as well. And one of the key areas of cooperation we have had is the fight against Daesh. So the kingdom was one of the key participants early on in the counter-ISIS coalition. We continue to be a significant part of that. We co-chair the financing working group in the Daesh coalition. We have become very, very active in pursuing global networks of terror finance, which is one of the key areas that we continue to work on. So the message is that we need to continue to be vigilant. We need to continue to be vigilant against terrorism, but also against extremism and extreme ideologies of all kinds. Honestly, not just Muslim extremism. There are other forms of extremism where we are facing challenges globally. It's not just in the Muslim world. Even in the Europe and the US, we see that, but also in countries in Asia. So we need to work together to continue to put a strong effort into countering any voices that might lead us down the path to global terrorism.
Well, undoubtedly, extremism and violence is not specific to one part of the world or one region, religion, or one group of people. But Afghanistan, the United States is pulling out of Afghanistan, and the Taliban are making rapid gains. Are you worried about this? Are you worried about it destabilizing the region, potentially creating more extremism? Because the extremists can point to Taliban as victors, as people who are able to outlast and maybe even outfight the United States. So how do you see the withdrawal from Afghanistan, and are you concerned about it creating more extremism?
I mean, we are consulting with the regional players. I was in the region just recently, and of course, everyone is trying to figure out how to best deal with the situation to make sure that we can find a path forward for Afghanistan that leads to peace through dialogue. And we're going to support any efforts to bring all factions within Afghanistan to the table to resolve this issue. Of course, so far we see that's not the course that's being taken, and we do see the violence increasing, and we see the threat to the government there increasing. And it's important, I think, that the international community can come together to support the states of the region, to support the Afghans, to find a path towards resolving their differences through dialogue, and to ensure that global transnational terrorism doesn't again find a foothold in Afghanistan. And there, I want to make quite clear, we have a very, very clear policy of zero tolerance for extremism, for terrorism, for global terrorism, and therefore it's absolutely critical that we work together to ensure that that doesn't become another source of threat in that regard. And
my old friend and the director here, Anja, Manuel, has just joined us again. I believe she has one, which may be the final question. I'll leave that to her to tell us.
Thank you very much, Rich, for joining us. And thank you so much, Prince Faisal. I just wanted to ask, because it's been so much a topic of conversation today with our other panelists and the audience here, you know, the US is really thinking about its relationship with China. And Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, many of the Gulf states have very positive relations with both. When I go to the Middle East, I see a lot of Chinese technology companies in particular investing, a lot of economic delegations. How do you strike that balance between your relationship with the United States and China?
We have as you mentioned, we have a very good relationship with both. We have an excellent relationship with the US. We also have a very good relationship with China. China is our largest trading partner, and I think that's the case for many countries around the world. And that just highlights the importance that if and when there are differences of opinion with China and between China and the US, it's absolutely key that that those be resolved through dialogue. And we will try and be part of that facilitation. We will try and bring our two big partners together and to try and work out their differences in a positive way. The global economy, I think, can't handle a complete breakdown in relationships between the two biggest economies. So we need to avoid that at all costs.
Thank you. And let me leave on one really optimistic note. When I travel in the region, I'm surprised at how much what I see on the ground differs from the news coverage in the United States. It tends to be a lot about terrorism, what's happening with Iran, conflict, Israeli-Palestine conflict. But I see a lot of young technology entrepreneurs in Saudi Arabia, in Bahrain, in the UAE. Can you say a little bit about what's going on that's positive with your youth, and especially with respect to technology? And then we'll wind it up.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, the thing I want to say first is I invite everyone on this call to come and visit the kingdom, because as much as I might try and describe it, seeing it is really the only way to understand the vibrance, the dynamism, the excitement that's here in the kingdom, especially among the younger generation. I almost feel too old to comment on this question. The younger generation is so engaged in Vision 2030 and the opportunities it offers through entrepreneurship and through, especially technology. You see, startups all over the place, whether it's delivery, apps for deliveries, whether it's, video content, gaming, anime, all of these things. You have a real excitement, as I said, of create a feeling of being able to create, being able to participate, being able to be really part of building a new Saudi Arabia. This vibrance is really the true hope. The Crown Prince has said, our main resource is our people, not our oil. And this is truly the case. What will deliver prosperity, sustainable prosperity for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is the innovation and commitment of its younger generation and of its people. And I'm extremely optimistic.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you for taking the time to be with us. I know it's late in Riyadh. Next time, we'll invite you to come join us in person here in the United States. Thank you both to Prince Faisal bin Farhan and to Richard Engel. With that, we are going to take a small break in programming just for 30 minutes, and then we will come back with a very important panel on U.S. trade policy. We have 3 former U.S. trade representatives with us to help us think through and understand Biden's trade policy and the emphasis on having a trade policy that helps workers and middle class. Thank you very much.